Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, and alongside me tonight, I have the worst Goonie ever, Professor Pixel. I have RDV from the Great Midwest, and tonight we are talking about the 1985 movie, The Goonies, a movie, gentlemen, that for some reason people love. I've never met anybody that loves it, but this is one of the few movies from the 80s that I actually despise. I can't stand it. I don't get mad at it, but I watch it, and I just think it's really, really awful, and yet it's hard to say that and be taken seriously by a lot of people because technically you could argue the movie is just an incredibly made movie at 2 hours long. It's got breakneck speed. It's got everything 80s kind of in it. And it's one of those ultimate movies that when you look back at the 80s, if you had to put it in the vault, you'd say, yep, that typifies the type of movie making that was going on. And one of the reasons why we selected, besides its extreme popularity, see what I did there, guys? Extreme popularity. Pixel, you being the young 20-something in the demographic, you'd never seen this movie before, had you?
Nope. This was the first time for me.
Well, I'm glad that RDV and I got to bust your cherry. Take that as it will. But why don't you give us your initial take on this movie before we start diving into it?
Okay. Well, The Goonies is a lot of fun. It's enjoyable. I don't hate it. I don't. But I don't love it either. It's one of those movies that's absolutely okay. It might be a smidgen more. I enjoyed it more than Top Gun. I'll say that. I enjoyed it more than Top Gun. But when it comes to the Goonies, I mean, you do have some characters in there, some incredible talent at a really young age, and their careers are going to take off from here. But getting to see them here, it's definitely a quick little adventure, and that's all it needed to be. And so that's
80s
fun.
commercialism distilled down to its finest, which when we talk about the characters that come up. RDV, you always like to do 80s stuff with me on Tuesday nights, and we do action stuff and whatnot too. I think you've seen this movie before, but it's been a while, and we've talked about doing it, and Pixel gave us the excuse. So upon rewatching, what did you make of the movie? Had it changed for you or what?
To me, it's still kind of the same. It's not bad, but I also want to praise it and say it's good too. It has a lot of different. I don't know. To me, it's like not Disney level bad. But I mean, there's a lot of 80s like nostalgia when you watch this movie. The plot is kind of like what you'd see in a TV made for movie,
right?
I mean, a lot of big name actors in here too. Sean Astin, but Doc Brolin, Corey Feldman, Robert Davi's in here too.
Yep,
my boy. And then you got the woman, the Ellen. I forget what her name is. Is it Anne Ramsey? Yeah, who's a phenomenal actor. Sadly, wasn't in more stuff. At least later on. I'm not sure when she died, but she plays Mama Fratelli. And I just kept thinking that the two sons, like who's the other guy?
Pantalone.
Yeah, I kept thinking that
the Fugitive. That's what I always think of him from.
I know. Was he also Ben Urich in that bad Daredevil movie? Or am I thinking of something else? Ben Affleck. Like I said, the guy in here though, the guy who plays Data, the kid.
Yeah.
I finally finally saw him in that new movie. Anywhere, whatever. I could look it up. It's everything. Everything, everywhere, all at once. He's all grown up in there, but he's also in Temple of Doom.
Yes,
that kid kind of took off. And it's just funny because when I first watched this movie and then I watched the other movie, I didn't put that two and two together. Those are the same kid,
right?
In the mine cart, but no, I like the movie. It's good. Repeat watchability, not for me, not much. I think people overhype it because it's just something they watch as a childhood, memory, and they like it. But I want to say it's better than everything else that came out. It's still entertaining, but like I said, like after a while, it's just like, okay, I'm just sick of sloth.
Well, and the thing about it too is you know the '80s is that as I mentioned before, and we've talked about it in our '80s cast, is that the '80s just got this snowball effect, this momentum going into it that you could throw anything together, 90 minutes to 2 hours, got some American stuff in it, and boom, people would watch it. You don't care about the quality, you'd be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was
Yeah.
amazing because, like in here, you know, one of the things we learned early on in the opening scene is that okay, you can be suicidal and it's okay as long as you're faking it in a movie like like we see Roberto Tavia's character in it, and then somehow he manages to walk out of the front of the police station while the other guy's gonna burn it down. You're like, okay, I know they're doing this in a comical kids sort of way, but I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, that took me off guard there. I'd forgotten about that, and
No, the statue of David going.
yeah.
How do you glue it upside down on the dick?
Well, yeah, and that's the whole thing too. Is this
Yeah.
movie? And I don't want to dive into it too much.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this for the children's sake. You can say what you want about Steven Spielberg and his movies, but this movie is basically we could quote unquote call it a coming of age movie between everybody, whether it's the adolescents or the preteens, and here two different groups. And that's ultimately, I think, one of the flaws of this movie is that while there's a lot of sexual innuendo in the show, we're meant to kind of ignore it, but it's really apparent from the tremendous amount of ball shots, the bad guys at the end literally sword fighting each other in the private areas and other stuff. It's like, as a kid, I kind of didn't really pick up on all this, but now I'm watching the adult going, my God, this is so glaringly blatant. How did I not really, see that when I was younger? And it's like, am I just cynical now being older?
Do you know what?
It's tremendous.
This has my boy, Josh Brolin here, who was married to my girl, bastard, Diane Lane.
Oh, are they?
They were married, yes. I think they're divorced. Yeah, they're divorced.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me, but
no, but so this is my first movie seeing Josh Brolin in it. So I had no idea who Josh Brolin until I saw this movie, and then after that, then you see him again come all these years later, Incoherent Vice, and then Deadpool.
Well, he didn't have a big career after this, as a matter of fact, until later in life. You would think that some more of he would have, by the way. But then again, that just happened to a lot of them. Martha Plimpton really didn't blow up until the 2000s when she got a couple of good TV shows. Same with the only ones would be like Sean Astin.
Yep.
He had a career. Ke Kwan, who you mentioned was in Everything Everywhere All at Once, was a stunt coordinator. So he had he was working all through behind the scenes. Worst Goonie there, Chunk, became an entertainment lawyer. So
yeah, he's like the smartest of the group.
You know, right?
Yeah.
Jeff Cohen, yeah. Yep.
We all know Corey Feldman just kind of went off the freaking deep end, but he had. Oh, have you seen him recently?
That's rhetorical.
Yeah.
A lot of people won't take anything he has to say seriously because of what he's been through. So,
well, yeah, but I believe that he had been through that, by the way. But also he just seems to be, I think because of what happened to him, he has never actually been able to grow up. And this comes from a person who's surrounded by comic book toys, It
sucks that Cary Green quit acting after that horrible movie with Charlie Sheen.
The Road movie. It's like
did Charlie make her quit?
Three for the Road, I think it was called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly don't want to dive into all the dark stuff about Spielberg or Charlie Sheen or any of that other kind of stuff.
Spielberg wasn't brought up in any of the Corey Feldman stuff. It was all Michael Jackson and stuff like that. So
at the macro level, all I'm simply saying is that we're talking about how Goonies '85 supposedly is really beloved. Now, if I go back, I want to sit there and say I don't think this is a movie that when you and I were kids we saw together, but I was in.
We did a couple times.
Loved it. I know we've seen it.
Yeah, because this was
on the first watch.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. This was at the Lake County Mall when I lived in Lake County. So, and this was one of the movies that I went to see damn near daily. If you remember, I didn't really make a lot of friends there. So you guys would come over on the weekends and we would do stuff. But I would take whatever allowance I could get. I would save my money up and I would go see a couple of movies. That's when I learned to do the theater hopping.
Yep.
And get that Coney Island chili. And one of the movies I saw that summer I'm just like, as much as I could was Goonies. I love this film. This is that's one of the reasons I want to jump in, because I think you've got who, and I know we have different opinions on Goonies. You never said anything when we were kids. I don't know. I don't remember you saying, "Well, that sucked, God damn it," or anything like that. But I could see as you grow up how you could separate yourself from it, and how you could just go, yeah, that's not really one of the good ones anymore. On the other hand, I think I might actually be in the same the boat that RDV was mentioning. But the thing is I never stopped watching it. This is a constant film for me. At least once or twice a year, I'll put it on. So,
well, that's what I
yeah.
want to dive into, because, okay, bottom line is the Goonies are a group of kids. But
Mhm.
as I mentioned right before when you were jumping in here, so you may not have caught it, is that one of the issues I have with the film is I don't necessarily hate any of the characters, and they're distinct or whatever, but they're really boiled down to like a one-word description.
Yep.
You got the fat kid that's made fun of a lot of, and that was an '80s thing, definitely. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, but it's really prevalent there. You got the
Single
bumbling
mom.
idiot bad dudes. Yeah, you've got Sloth. You've got Mouth. And the thing is with these kids at that age, half the time they're talking, I'm going, is it me? But I can't understand half the damn things they're saying when they're talking over each other and yelling and screaming.
Yeah,
And
that
it's
was
annoying.
actually by design. They wanted that because that's how people talk. That's how kids talk. Definitely, they're you might have a group of them and they're all having different conversations, or it'll be like I said, they'll be talking in or they'll each try to have the funny line or something along those lines. So yeah, that was by design. I've watched the making of. I had the DVD and watched the making of, and it's I believe Richard Donner was the director
Superman.
of this.
Mm-hmm.
So while it was an Amblin Entertainment film, it's his film. Richard Donner, in my opinion, had a brilliantly eclectic film. What do you call it?
Career.
Well, yeah, I guess I was a filmography in the 80s. He in the 80s, of course, he did the Superman movie. Well, that was in 78, but he did Goonies. He did Lady Hawk,
Mm-hmm.
Lethal Weapon. So this is not a guy that you can nail down. And I don't know. I think he got the idea, and I think he got what it's like to hang around with a whole bunch of preteens. But the thing is, when you're an adult, you don't want to freaking hang around with a whole bunch of preteens. It's just it's annoying. I could see why you might not like that, but I can also see that I would have, at this point in time, I'd have little rose tinted goggles as far as this movie's concerned. So I don't know how if I watched it today or tomorrow, and I got to admit I haven't seen it probably in about a year or so. But if I watched it, would I be able to watch it with an open mind as to how bad it might be? Although I do see its flaws.
Yeah, and the movie looks great too. But I want to pivot this back to Pixel, because when we do action movies on Tuesday night, RDV and I, whether it's Canon Classics or we veer off into other stuff there too, we kind of have a running take on themes and stuff when we relate it to stuff. But we chose this film because Pixel, being in his early 20s, had never seen it before. So, to his point, it's mid, as the youngins would say these days, the demo would say.
Yeah.
The problem I'm having too is every time I do any research on this film before tonight, I keep hearing, "Oh, this movie's a cult film." I'm like, it's not a cult film. This thing was a smash hit.
It was a hit. Yeah.
It was big.
Yeah.
And like a cult film was like something that sucked. Nobody liked. People paid the price for it. But later on, somehow somebody, just through grit and perseverance, it kind of paid off. And then boom, a new generation of people followed it. That's what I think of with a cult film.
Yeah, maybe it's if you put it in context, when you and I first saw this, we were 15 years old. And so looking back at the same time period, you're talking about 35 years. So it would be the same as us discovering The Blob or The Treasure of Sierra Madre or War of the Worlds, something that maybe people aren't talking about as much today or in 1985, but was very popular at the time. Of course, we had the added benefit of movie of the week and only 3 channels. So it's actually easier and yet harder for people Pixel's age to discover the stuff and have that communal the communal what am I trying to say?
Groupthink.
Yeah, I guess so. Like we would go when Bill Cosby himself came on. The next day, everybody at school was talking about how funny Bill Cosby himself was.
Right.
You know, I don't think Pixel's generation could possibly experience that.
Pixel, what's your response for that shot across the problem?
No, it wasn't a shot.
That's not a shot.
It's accurate.
There's certain things you could, I guess, debate about. Oh, well, if this thing's currently popular, you have that to talk about. But no, when it comes to the Goonies, I think that a cult following does apply when you think about just how dang popular it remains. It's not like there are people that absolutely are down for this movie. They love it completely. It's one of their films that they keep all time, and that is a cult following, persevering through the span of time since it came out.
Well, yeah, I'm wearing my chunk shirt.
Well, Pixel, let me ask you this. I'm sure RDV's got some thoughts on it, but forgetting the story and the characters a little bit, just from the film perspective, I know over on your channel you do a lot of analysis as well, and I know you and I do some TV stuff and we're currently doing A Prisoner. We do that before this. What stuck out to you as something that went, I like this, or I don't like this, or what did you notice about just the film aspect of the Goonies that maybe you're not seeing today, that's something that might have been different or something you would have liked or whatever? Because that's the kind of stuff we wanted to kind of bring up and talk about a little bit tonight. What did you notice film-wise that attracted you?
I mean, well, you said before we came on talking about it, how it is a film that is sometimes just shot beautifully. The set work is amazing, but my favorite shot is actually once the wall is down and the ship goes ahead and goes out, and you see it out there on the water. It is kind of, it has a certain glory to it. But I mean, other than that, it's mostly okay. I suppose with Sloth, I know we talk about how annoying he is, but that work, the prosthetic work that they went ahead to go ahead and make him that way, that's astounding. If you look at the real guy, I feel bad for him. They really made him like 10 times uglier.
Yeah, and I agree too, because if there's one thing, and I will say, as much as I might crap on Spielberg or whatever, or just some things in his films that I personally don't care for, one thing I like, and Donner nailed this, and you see it in a lot of 80s films, and I'm just going to say this out there, lens flare, go look it up, because I love it when people take out flashlights and you see the giant rings going around it and everything. There's something about it that's magical.
Abrams really took that to the next level. The shot I always liked in the Goonies, and I wish they would have at some point in time made a DVD cover, or at least a poster, a movie poster, is the shot on the beach. As you see, it's after the adventure, they're out of the cave and they're just all kind of lined up with Sloth following them. I thought that was always a nice shot of just the group.
Yeah.
But other than that, this was, of course, before the green screen sets, before George Lucas put this upon us. I think it would have been fantastic just to work on these things, because even just like the log with the waterfall, well, you talked about the ball shot. There were a lot of ball shots in this movie. That area, the bit where you're running and you have the hammers falling, which is a ridiculous trap. There were just so many things that I thought, wow, it would have just been cool to do. I always felt jealous, because I would have loved to have done the things that those actors had done, knowing even that they're actors, just to go through that. That water slide looks fun, and the fact that they came off and flew out into the into the water. Of course, that was the stunt doubles. They wouldn't allow, the kids wanted to, they wouldn't allow them to.
Yeah.
What they did with that was after they filmed the stunt people coming out, they led the actors with hoods over them, so they couldn't see, and then they all had them lower their heads. They pulled it. He calls action. They stand up. They turn around. That was the first time they saw the ship set, and so they wanted to get their natural reaction to that particular scene, and that was always one of my favorite scenes as
Now,
well.
RDV, I've got to ask. You and I have covered tons of martial arts movies across the globe, different cultures, different ethnicities, different styles, different levels of production. And so I think you and I are an extreme master of not so special effects, even though we've covered the greatest ninja movies of all time, like Revenge of the Ninja and such. When you're watching the Goonies and all that too, despite the fact you and I have talked about like Rocky and all the other 80s stuff there too, where does the visual part of this film get to you, or does it?
I guess the whole aspect of what you or aesthetic, what you were saying before about going through the little tunnels way and just playing the piano stuff. Back then when I first watched it, it was more magical then. Now that I'm older, you can spot like this looks basically looks like they're obviously on a set, or it looks like they're at Disneyland, Disney World.
That's true. That's true.
Well, absolutely. And when you have an adult trained eye, you most definitely can see the. God dang it! I hate my memory these days.
But I do like though the pirate boat, like especially ship at the end. Problem is, they're like, oh, you're gonna let sail. I'm thinking like, I don't know if it's still sail. But then again, they found boats that actually that weren't sunk. This is the first.
Yeah, no, but it wouldn't sail like that. It would fall
no.
The close-ups were a model. They were a miniature.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, they say somewhere, I haven't seen it in my entire life, they put an R2-D2 robot on it somewhere, so look for that. But
no, but
I've never seen it.
So me being the person that like wants to know more about this movie, I looked up like the 1632 doubloon that they found, with the treasure map. Back then, and in the 1600s, that was worth $4. Now it's like $11 United States currency.
Yeah, it's living here in Central Florida. I've come across personally people that I've known that have been involved family-wise with some treasure-seeking opportunities, and that's something that doesn't really get any mainstream coverage these days. But it's interesting to see some of these older pieces that people find and collect, and the stories of how they get the rights to find them and all that. And what I think one of the great things about this film is, and it upsets me because I go, well, is this a movie about the teenagers? Is it a movie about the kids? It really isn't about either, and I think it brings it down. But the magic of all these little things that you find, conveniently by chunk, breaking things and falling, which is not funny at all, or getting yelled at or harassed. It's kind of annoying actually, but you see old stuff there. Are we led to believe that the father who had all this stuff had no idea what any of it meant and all that? It's really absurd. But again, it strikes, I think, as a kid, that whole sense of mystery and adventure, and like what you're saying earlier about, it'd have been really, really fun to do what they were doing, being involved in. Because I tell you, if you've ever been underground and in water, they would have froze their ass off. They'd have been shivering. They wouldn't have made it. The dynamite they carried from the beginning all the way down there wouldn't have worked. It would have, it would have been inert or would have exploded. It's just, it really doesn't make sense. But to this day, in social circles and with different people, I know that there's people whose kids and their kids' they go, let's have a Goonies party, and everybody comes over and watch it. And I go, I just don't recall, other than Stranger Things, which has totally gone downhill since the first season or two, people having this interest in the Goonies, or something came out. If they had rebooted it, and so we had this newfound interest in it, I would understand that. But I just have recognized that out of all the 80s products that are out there, it just seems like Goonies is the automatic go-to, and people today here in the 2020s still really, really enjoy it. And I don't know why, I just know they do.
I want to say that I feel like Stranger Things was kind of inspired from the Goonies.
Definitely.
That's why it works so well.
It has that sense of adventure, going back to when you're a kid, everything can be seen with wonder. And so when you apply that to that, you can see why people love this movie. And I absolutely respect that.
I like it because Josh Brolin rides little girl's bicycle.
Also, in context, if you go back and you look at what was being released for kids, we grew up in a great time.
Yes, absolutely.
Even family films like Cloak and Dagger, starring Dabney Coleman and Elliot Thomas from E.T. That was dark. People are getting shot in the head. People are running around. We're just sitting there watching it like it's a family film because
Agreed.
it was. We were trusted to watch a lot of stuff that kids, even when you were growing up there, Professor, were trusted to do more so than even RDV, and he's only 10 years behind us. And I think that actually kind of resonates. I think right now you got a lot of people telling others who and what and how everything is good for them. And they go back to something like the Goonies, which is very much a silly family film that has a bit of an edge to it. And it's appreciated. That kind of thing is appreciated. I would love to see movies like Cloak and Dagger get a little bit extra, watch Secret of Nim. That was an animated film that could freaking curl your mustache.
Back when Disney was still considered good, and we know that here locally, that's before the downfall of Disney.
Yeah.
If anybody listened to my stock picks way back when I said I would avoid Disney here, and I am no financial advisor giving no financial advice, but I said don't do it, and now we're seeing what's happening. Yeah, let me bring this up too because Disney kind of segues a little bit into the commercialism here. In the 80s, we saw a lot of crossover with not just music from MTV, obviously Cyndi Lauper and all that, but nothing says the 80s like, and it's hard for people to imagine this, like Corey Feldman not just wearing his members only jacket, because he's one of the few good guys to wear it, because mostly it's the bad guys that would wear the members only jacket, but him having the Pepsi and then the Pepsi cooler being outside the Fratelli's household there, the little hideaway, but also those Nikes with the giant swoosh. Nike back in the 70s couldn't find anybody to wear them. No athlete, no teams, nothing. And they were literally a shoe for runners because the guy who started Nike was a runner himself at Oregon. And so to get Nikes in a mainstream like this, and I believe Nikes were in Back to the Future, which is also this year too. What a big year for movies. And so this kind of helped brand Nikes as being the 80s thing because they were not necessarily a great quality shoe unless you're a runner. And a running shoe is different than a CrossFit shoe, different than a football shoe, and it matters. But now in today's world, Nike dominates. And so I look at Pixel, I look at someone like you who's in their early 20s going out, people that just want to go out and they got a shoe fetish and they're going to spend $200 on a pair of walking shoes. Back then, it was Nikes or whatever, but man, oh man, the cross promotion here, and of course the purple rain shirt that Corey wears in here too. I mean, that was very 80s. You could take somebody like him not do anything, and it could be all substance or all style and no substance, and that would work because these characters have zero depth to them at all.
You're right. They are exactly what their names. This is Chunk. This is Mouth. And that was their central theme. Now I think Chunk actually ended up getting good characterization. He was rounded out because he was one of the only ones with his only story. It was him and a guy who didn't really talk. So I think he got a lot more characterization than others. Mouth, they tried to give him a little bit of a redemption story, but some of it was cut out. So, and that was one of the biggest problems. They wanted this to be a family-friendly runtime. So big chunks of the movie were cut out where you actually had discussions between Martha Plimpton's character, Steph, and Mouth, which would have given them a little bit more depth. The same thing with Mikey, Brand, and the pretty girl, Carrie Green. I can't think of her character's name right up. But there was actually a lot of stuff cut out on that one. So you did miss out, and that's why at the end he's like, "Oh, the octopus was really scary." I am so glad they cut that scene because that looked fake and it would have just kind of derailed everything. It was a good thing they cut it out.
I'll warn you: don't watch this movie if you're hungry. Chunk mentions food 22 times.
Yeah, the fat guy fats. That's basically it. Yeah. One thing about the branding, one thing about all that, that has actually never bothered me so much in a movie, unless it was like an Adam Sandler thing. Like if Mouth is drinking a Pepsi, that's fine. People drink Pepsis.
Milk
I
in a Pepsi cup.
literally just took a drink of Dr. Pepper. I'm not hired by anybody, but the thing is, brands are everywhere in your daily life anyway. Same as in 1985. What I don't like is like the Adam Sandler style, where they will literally stop, and they did in Mr. Deeds, stop the movie dead. Oh, I'm hungry. Let's go here. Hey, Carl, how's that Frosty from Wendy's doing? I don't know. This is very good, James. How is that bacon double classic? It's excellent. You know, that's the kind of branding that bothers me in a movie. But and whenever people, like, they're gonna have Nikes, they're going to have Pepsi, they're going to have Coke, they're going to have all that kind of stuff around them.
It was just funny because the first 4 minutes you see Chunk with pizza and he's got milk in a Pepsi cup.
That was actually a thing because there was a very popular show called Laverne and Shirley. And Laverne would always drink milk and Pepsi. Now, here's the thing. Don't put ice in it. That's the clue to the milk and Pepsi if you ever try it. But yeah, so that was actually, it wasn't like everybody was doing it, but it was not incredibly uncommon to find somebody.
Name drop Baby Ruth. There's a lot of them. Domino's Pizza. All that
Baby Ruth.
Rocky Road.
Yeah, but Rocky Road's just a flavor. It does.
I know, but still, it's like.
But even in that ice cream freezer, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, they got Ben and Jerry's. That is so much better than Edie's. You should try it. Here. They didn't do that. It was just he brought the ice cream and was calling it by name. Yeah. By the way, Ann Ramsey, I see Ed Brewer's like, oh, Ann Ramsey was in the Throw Mama Off the Train, but. I and Rob will tell you what you really want to see Ann Ramsey in is Deadly Friend. You remember that scene with the basketball?
I've been keeping them in my back pocket for later because we like to do not necessarily mainstream movies, but Goonies is so mainstream. It's like, well, yeah, we have to tackle, especially if Pixel hasn't seen it. So we make some of these choices just to kind of get them out there in the open and. It's not all fun and games when it comes to all these classic movies because I tell you, you and I always kind of bicker over what we like and don't like, and that's great. Mm-hmm. But the 80s is just an interesting decade because, let's take the guy, was it Anton or whatever like that? So whatever the hell his name is the good-looking guy that was driving around the car, who was, I guess, the boyfriend of the so-called pretty girl, Carrie.
And
it's
all over when you write up Troy's bucket.
Yeah, because Troy's if you had a name like Troy, you'd get beat up if you were a D-bag. But they make him ultimately that kind of guy, and he's a good-looking guy. He was the last American Virgin you and I have talked about. So he had a pretty decent career, at least promising one back then. But they make him such a character where he's sitting on a toilet reading guns and ammo when all the pipes burst. It's like, ha, ha, ha. I guess that's funny.
That's one of the scenes I could do without. That was one. It took it. We're in a fantastical setting when you're underneath, when you're in the pirate caves and so forth and so on. So when you're in the real world, you want to keep it a little bit more grounded. In my opinion, that way you take the fantastical parts, and that was the word I was searching for earlier, fantastical. You want to take those, you'll be able to take those a little bit more seriously if you play the real world a little bit more serious. I'm not talking about drama. You don't have to be the freaking Godfather here, but
right.
The having the toilet shoot him up into the ceiling and such. That was a little bit much. Even if it just kind of bubbled up and he flew off, that's one thing. But I think the flying into the
Daddy.
But it was in the original. Yeah, it was in the original script that they screwed the pipes up enough to cause traffic.
I will say this. I was telling them a story behind the scenes before you hopped in here and before we went live. And how is this relevant? I'll get to that. I took. I took my lady out for lunch today at a nice place in Altamont Springs near our Class A mall called the Altamont Mall. And on the way back, I drove through what used to be a high-end, older, established neighborhood that had a golf course in the middle of it. So here in the Goonies, the whole "Daddy" scene, the whole idea here is that somehow they're being foreclosed on, and you get the woe is me kids, you get the absent father. At least there is one in this movie. And the idea is that these evil developers are taking over their house first, and soon they're going to take over all the other ones, and then they're going to put a country club in it. And Central Florida is the golf capital of the world. I mean, bottom line, that's just facts. But the way the economy's gone and demographics over the past 30, 40 years, you have golf courses closing, and the sign of what used to be considered affluent, upper middle class, a good lifestyle, safe community is gone. And so I thought it was interesting in this movie how they made this whole foreclosure angle like kind of a big deal, and that's why they feel kind of forced to spend little time they can together, because by the next morning when daddy has to sign the papers over, which this is not how it would go in the real world at all. But once he does that, that's your mythical time when everything's over and we have to become adults in this godforsaken world. That's one of the issues that I had, because in the 80s, golf courses, malls were a sign of, hey, our neighborhood, our town, our community is doing well. Kind of like Starcourt Mall, at least they got that part of it right. In Stranger Things, where, hey, that was like an oasis where people would go to and it was fun, it was enjoyable. Now it's not that way, right? But in this movie, they make it seem like it's bad, evil developers. It's like, no, somehow mommy and daddy couldn't figure out how to pay the bills, ran into some problems or whatever, and it's not their fault, and they gloss over it. And unfortunately, 80s movies has this veneer of everything's evil and it's not our fault, let's stay in fantasy land. And that's one of the things about some of these childlike movies from the 80s or even since then that I just think it's really difficult, because a lot of the young writers I've seen out there now that are on social media sites, when they try to look at older movies and give the review on it, they talk about the problem of this and that and everything else. And I'm like, as much as I can talk about the fat kid being made fun of here, that was an 80s thing, and it wasn't necessarily malicious, even though it may come across that way to people today looking at it. But people that looked at it and talked about the encroachment of gentrification of this and that, over, like, no, you're looking at a movie with an 80s movie through the lens of 2020 rather than what was going on. And I think that's lost on a lot of younger people. So, Pixel, having said all that, a gazillion words, anything kind of come to mind to you that sticks out as a little odd, or maybe that's not appropriate for today, or something that we need to talk about? Because it really is a 35, 40-year-old movie, and that's why we want to talk about it.
No, you know what? I mean, I suppose you could talk about the main girl, the hot girl there, saying, "Oh, well, him looking down my shirt wasn't that bad. Oh, it was. I have a nice body. I have that." I could see that some people nowadays would say, "Look at that."
But even in that, you have the argument that this was at a time where she was having a little bit of a panic attack.
Yes,
because she's in this situation. She went from a situation she thought was bad to a situation that was worse. And now she's looking at the bad situation as, that wasn't so bad because all he was doing was looking at my shirt. And I understand, because I have a great body. Don't you think I have a great body? I have a great body, because it's going to go away. And someday I'm going to look like him. Whoa, skeleton. That was the whole point.
Mr. Perkins, if he wasn't dead, he should be ashamed of the state of that cabin. Oh, dusty it was. That is just unclean, and sanitation should just
the old restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it said it closed down for the summer. I'm like, but there's already like
30 years ago
webs on it. Yeah, I know. This isn't just a restaurant that's been closed down for a few months after summer, dude. It's
especially when you see Chunks on the phone with the sheriff, and you look behind him, it's like, where is he?
Mm-hmm.
Kicking those spiders, man.
I gotta tell you, this is the first time I was introduced to Rhys Davies, who, by the way, very conservative actor. The other one, Joey Pants from Sopranos, and I heard somebody mention the Bad Daredevil movie. He was in a lot of stuff. Joey Pantalone, or whatever his name is, Joey Pants, was in a ton of stuff. Reyes Davies.
I know.
He became a Bond villain at one point.
He plays
I think they were
fantastic.
fantastic in this, and they knew
Yeah.
what movie they were in as well, and they had fun with it. And that's what I think ultimately makes the Goonies something to watch now. It's just a fun film, and it does have flaws. I'm not going to try to gloss over that, but it is just a fun film.
Fun fact, though, the mother, Miss Walsh, Mary Erin Taylor, I did not realize that she appeared in Die Hard, and she was also in Weapon 2 as a psychologist.
She's a Richard Donner mainstay.
Yep.
She is in she's in all Richard Donner's movies. You can find her somewhere.
All the Weapon movies, I think she's in. At least she's in Forrest Gump. She's in there too. Little Giants. Yeah, she's like in a lot of Roswell, the first TV series.
Anything that Richard Donner has his finger on, she's in somewhere. Usually, also the captain of police in Lethal Weapon.
Yeah,
he's also somewhere in a lot of. I don't think he shows up in Goonies, but I know he's in a lot as well.
Executive Decision, great movie.
But
yeah, I'll close with this, and we'll go around for final thoughts. Here is that the Goonies obviously is an '80s mainstay. Cannot deny it. The force of this movie is strong. It's unstoppable. I mean, and it was a monster hit. Certainly not a cult film. I think the movie works best when the kids are doing. Because when they slow down for a minute to catch their breath and talk, they're annoying. They talk over each other. I don't think it's necessarily that fun of the film, but I think your point earlier about, wishing that you could be in an adventure like that, that's, I think, part of the strong appeal. And I wish they would have kept it to the kids, not had the teenagers in there. I think it was totally unnecessary. Do one or the other, not both. And I think it would have been a lot better. That being said, I understand as appeal. I think it's a beautiful film. Where they shot on the outside scenes too, and even the really horrific looking, Disney-esque inside set pieces are still very watchable. You don't feel like it's underground with rats and bats and spiders and cold water and conveniently placed lights everywhere. It looks good visually watching. You're like, man, this is great. And the score is solid too. It's directed really well. And for a 2-hour film, it moves for the most part very fast. And so I like the setup and the world building, even though it's not really building up the worlds. So there's a lot to like about the film. I don't have fun with it. It's almost a chore to watch these days for me because of how it is. And that's just what happens when we go back and we look at some of the things from our youth. Sometimes it doesn't age well. For me, I can't say that happens a lot, but for this one it did. Who wants to go next with their final thoughts?
I'll say this is a movie, like I said, I think it gets overhyped more than what it is, because people just have that attachment growing up watching it. Like, look at you guys watching the 80s, you watch it so many times, so you guys are, you gotta watch this, and then you get kids there like, like, Mom, Dad, it's okay, you have to watch it 10 more times.
I'd watch this over Frozen any day.
But no, the fact that the popularity is still there. Yeah. I won't deny it, but this is a movie for me. My sister's like, you want to watch this? And she's 11 years older than I am, and I'm just like, I'm good. Make your kids watch it and see how they react.
Yeah, but don't you think, RDV, the fact that a movie like this can be as popular as some of the movies out today is kind of a sad indictment on today's films?
Like my thing is that if you try to get me to watch something, constantly trying to watch me, I start to hate the thing.
Yep.
And that's got the point with some of these movies where people are like, hey, this is so great, so great. So it's like you keep bothering about the movie, I'm not going to watch the movie. But no, I watched this a couple times, and I saw it is good, it is entertaining, but I can't turn my brain off and watch it again because I've seen every episode, every little nick and cranny in this movie. Point where I'd rather watch a movie where you can forget it and go back and watch it and have a new experience still.
Right. Sometimes you want to put something away and let it and forget about it, so it's almost fresh when you rewatch it.
And you get that nostalgia as you watch it again.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole thing that sums this movie up. What about you, Pixel? We did this because of you, sir, because we care about your needs.
Yeah, my needs. Well, I saw the movie. That's what I got to say. I mean, it's just. I do think it's an okay film, and that's all there really is to it. I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's great. I could settle for a good. Sure, you have a good time with it. But overall, it's the Goonies, I guess, and that's all it really has going for it.
I, feel
I
like
say meh, you say mid, RDV says whatever. What say you, Entertain?
Murdoch, I'm coming for you. Okay, so obviously I wanted to wait till last because I'm the guy who writes the love letter. That's of all of us, I'm the one that really, since I was 15, since I first saw it, I've loved this film, flaws and all. I think that this is absolutely deserved of its place in history. If people are discovering it, that's great. This is a great old-fashioned kids adventure or family adventure film, and that's one of the reasons. It's got an excellent score. The theme song is catchy as hell. The acting for kids, surprisingly very good. And yes, it does have some problems with some dialogue occasionally, not just the overlapping, but chunky dialogue as well. Especially, hey, come and hold this. Yeah, people don't trust me to hold this because I'm going to crash. Yeah, there's things I would cut out as well. But this is just, it's pure entertainment. I don't think anybody's going to walk away from this any smarter, better, stronger, or anything like that. Maybe they'll have a hankering for some history and look stuff up and everything. Maybe that's it. But what you're getting when you watch the Goonies is 100% pure entertainment. Can you age out of it? Of course. Once again, like I said, I was there. Rob, I do not remember you saying anything about it when we saw it. And we saw it quite a bit during that summer. That was an awesome summer, by the way, because we also saw Last Dragon and Return of the Dead. There were some good movies that summer.
85 was a killer year.
But yeah, I could see how some people can grow out of it. But I could also see after they have kids and they hit a certain age going, oh yeah, I remember liking this. Let me put this on for the kids and just rediscovering it and enjoying the hell out of it. It's fun. It's silly. In some places it's stupid. But once again, and that's what I'm going to say is it's just pure entertainment.
Yeah, and RDV and I talk about the lack of wholesome movies, for lack of a better term. Not that we cover a lot of them because they're few and far between, but having the family-friendly aspect is usually a long-term winner, I think. And I think the Goonies does nail that. So no matter what anybody thinks about the film, it does have that magical kind of childlike innocence that, you had fun, like we talked about before, when you would go to movies in the 80s. And it's not just a hype thing to go see once or whatever. You sit back and you enjoy it. For a 2-hour film, it moves fast, and it's got a lot going for it, despite the fact it's not my favorite. But that being said, I'm glad we all enjoyed it.
I got one last question.
Go ahead.
Favorite Goonie?
To quote Animal House, and those of you that know the film, you'll understand what I'm about to say here. My favorite Goonie is this one. It's 0.0 because I don't like any of them. It would be Mouth.
Either Mouth or I kind of always like Data. Just because, one, he had tons of inventions to pop out and none of them worked. It just seems exactly what a kid would be. Hey, I've got this thing I worked on for 5 minutes and it just
nobody liked Mike because he's annoying and the lead guy, but that's what happened a lot in 80s films. You like the side characters, not the main.
Yeah, both Mike was the audience member. You're being brought along. Luke Skywalker, Neo, same character.
Yeah.
Brand was just kind of bland, so I'm gonna leave that out. But yeah, I'd probably go with Data on that one.
Honestly, I would go with Data too, even though Corey Feldman's character Mouth is a close second. But Data, because he's
Data
just
got to zip line, and I always wanted to zip line.
Pixel, who's your favorite little pixelnator on the set of the Goonies?
You want to guess who's not?
I don't want to discriminate based on someone's caloric consumption ability.
Yeah, no, actually it is. You were saying how he is the audience member, but no, Mikey is my favorite. He as a leader, he goes ahead and he has some of those key moments that you need for a group to give that speech, to go ahead and push on. I like Mikey. I really do.
By the way, I know you're putting down Chunk. He's a good guy, and he's so freaking iconic that Ned Landry in Jurassic Park is wearing his fucking shirt. Okay, look that crap up. He is wearing exactly the shirt that you are wearing, that you've got showing right there.
The exact same shirt. He just stretched it out.
Yeah, he just, yeah. I like to think he is actually Chunk, just grown up. We now know what happens to Chunk. He grows up and gets eaten by a Dilophosaurus.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Goonies from 1985 here on the Extreme Movie Show. I'd like to thank Eve for being a surprise drop-in guest here tonight. And, of course, I'd like to thank Professor Pixel for allowing us to revisit something from our childhood that we had to take the dust and kind of wipe off there a little bit. And that's what makes this special from one generation to another. And, of course, RD from the Great Midwest. He's such a nice guy like everybody else is from there. I can't wait to go back to a ninja movie. So we'll discover some really weird movie for Tuesday. Look for that live next. For everybody involved here, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. As always, stay extreme. Good night.